By now, you've understood what Spark can do. You've installed Spark. Now let's do some data analysis using the PySpark Shell. Once you've installed Spark, you can launch the PySpark Shell from the command line. Simply type PySpark and it'll show you something like this. This is the prompt where you can type in your commands to use all the functionality in Spark as well as Python. The PySpark Shell is simply a Python shell with all Spark cool stuff built in. You can use Python functions such as dictionaries, lists, and any Python command that you can think of. You can even import Python modules and call functions and classes from those. You can configure PySpark to launch in an IPython notebook. Again, very Python-like. By default, Spark will be launched in a local, non-distributed mode when you launch off PySpark in this manner. You run your command a little bit differently if you wanted the distributed mode. PySpark --master space local 2 in square brackets. By using the master option, you launch Spark in a distributed mode, and then you can plug in different cluster managers to work with your cluster. The local and in square brackets 2 refers to the number of threads on your local machine. So this tells Spark, launch a shell using multiple threads on the machine where you're running Spark. And your here 2 refers to the number of threads. Typically, it will be equal to the number of cores on your machine. If one thread runs on one core, that's when you'll eke out the best performance. You can also use the PySpark command to specify the yarn resource manager to use as your cluster manager. You can simply say --master yarn-client, and this will plug in yarn from your Hadoop cluster to use as your cluster manager in Apache Spark. Okay, so you've finally done it. You've launched a PySpark shell. Notice the message. It says something about a Spark context. When a shell is launched, it initializes a Spark context which is available within this Python shell as SC. So you use the variable SC to access the Spark context, and this Spark context is the connection to the Spark cluster. PySpark looks like a Python shell. You can run Python commands on it. You connect to Spark using the Spark context. Spark context can be used to load data into memory from a specified source. Loading data into memory allows you to create resilient distributed data sets, the RDDs. Remember, these are the fundamental programming abstractions that we'll use in order to manipulate and investigate data. So the Spark context is needed to create RDDs. All our data analysis will be through operations on RDDs. They form the core. They're created using the Spark context. Let's see an example of data analysis using PySpark. We'll use RDDs without really focusing on them. This will give you a good glimpse of how Spark works. We'll use an interesting data set in order to perform our analysis. This is part 1 where we'll explore airline delays data with PySpark. Now, where do we get this data set from? The US Department of Transportation, or the US DOT as we'll call it, publishes flight information on its website. This data is free and available for anyone to use and analyze. So you can download this data. You can get flight arrival, departure times, delays for all flights taking off in a certain period. So you can specify the area that you want to focus on, the year that you're interested in, and maybe a month or multiple months of data. All of these can be accessed from the Department of Transportation website. We'll be using this data a lot, so pay close attention.